When the Chiefs traded for Orlando Brown Jr. a couple of years ago, we thought he would be in Kansas City well into the future. It ended up being 2 years. They didn't franchise tag him at what would have been $19.99 million. He becomes a free agent. I think he wanted more than he got, but he ultimately settled for a 4-year, $16 million per year deal with the Bengals. Peter, why do you think Brown ended up getting such a low number relative to the top left tackles and top right tackles currently being paid in the NFL?
This is, to me, the most surprising thing so far in free agency, Mike. I think that, when I was at the scouting combine and I was talking to people about who's really going to get paid this year, who's going to make the most money this year, I had 3 different people tell me that, on the offensive side of the football, not on the offensive line, and you really can't include quarterbacks in this, so in other words, non-quarterbacks, because look, I thought Jimmy G was going to do a little better than 22 or 22.5, but be that as it may, of all the non-quarterbacks on offense, I think everybody thought, at least 3 people who I talked to thought that the highest paid guy was going to be Orlando Brown. And I think it's a surprise. There's no question about it. If you look at it, Mike, what I find really interesting is that, and I looked this up at Over the Cap before the show. And you're right, Over the Cap and Spot Track do a really good job of basically putting things in perspective. And if you look at all of the left tackles in football, the guy who signed the most recent contract, Orlando Brown, is the 10th highest paid left tackle. And that is shocking when you consider it, because a lot of these contracts are fairly old. The Trent Williams contract, Laramie Tunsil contract, Ronnie Stanley contract. Those are old contracts, and relatively speaking. And so to be the 10th best contract at left tackle, I just think it's really surprising. And you ask why. I think the reason why is that I think people looked at Orlando Brown as a good to very good left tackle. They didn't look at him as a top 3 or 4 left tackle. And I think that's the reason why he ended up going lower. And again, Mike, this contract says a lot of things to me. Number one, I think it's a great deal for the Cincinnati Bengals, because you now have 3 guys on your roster capable of starting at tackle in the NFL. And now your incumbent left tackle, Jonah Williams, you would think would go to the right side now. You'd think, but we'll see. And if I'm Joe Burrow, I'm thinking, look, this is what I really needed, even if eventually I'm going to lose one of my 2 great wide receivers. We need to be better on the offensive line. And so if I'm Joe Burrow, I really like this signing. I like it a lot. And I think the Bengals did a smart thing in not rushing into this contract in the first day of free agency, but waiting until basically day 3 or 4, whenever it got done. And to me, it's a good outcome for the team, a good outcome for the quarterback. And Orlando Brown has to be thinking, I probably thought I was going to do better.
I'd love to know more about the details of what was offered by the Chiefs last year, what was offered by the Ravens before they traded him to the Chiefs. He had a change in representation, and now I think it's somebody like a family member or somebody connected to him in some way other than the firm he had before. And look, for $16 million a year, Peter, if I'm Orlando Brown, I'm saying I'm doing a 1-year deal and I'm trying this again next year after a year with the Bengals. What makes it an even better deal for the Bengals is they got a 4-year contract from Orlando Brown Jr. at a reasonable rate as they try to build out a roster that has reasonably priced players around Joe Burrow, the guy who's eventually going to get a gigantic contract and be the center of the universe for the Bengals for years to come.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.